Good morning. Jerry Abrahams,
Here.
Commissioner Dom,
Here.
Phil DeFranco,
Here.
Timothy Hodgins. Just noted, Catherine McKinnon will not join us this morning. Commissioner Perez, Franklin Perry, Chelsea Ross,
Here.
Sarah Sanders.
Here.
Excellent. We do have a quorum in attendance for the meeting.
Okay, so we have lots of reports today, really no action items, but some non-standard reports. So and the swap report and the internal audit report. So let's get going. And the first item's over to Hazim for report on the last bond sale.
Sure. Here with me to present the report regarding the sale that we just conducted for the 2023 Series B single family is Susan John from Citi, the book runner. I did prepare a memo to just summarize what transpired, but I will hand it over to Susan to dive into the detail that we experienced and went through the whole pricing. So Susan.
Thank you, Hazim. Do we have the presentation up?
Susan, Lorraine, can you move to the?
There we go, great. So if we could turn to page 4, yep, that's great. On page 4, we have the transaction overview of CHFA's second financing of the year. As far as timeline, we priced the bonds on Monday, July 10th, and we will close this issue next Thursday on August 3rd. The objective of this financing is to provide new money proceeds for funding the authority single family lending program. And on the right-hand side of this page, we list all of the financing team members involved in the transaction. Next page, please. Here we have the all fixed rate bond structure that was sold, consisting of 35.5 million of serial bonds. And we had 4 term bonds totaling 111.3 million. So total financing value was 146.3 million. This included a 5-year average life PAC bond of almost 44 million. The coupons ranged from 3.15% to 4.65%. The PAC, as usual, was sold as a premium bond with a coupon of 5.75%, yielding 4.11. Next page, please. Market backdrop. As we've seen continued volatility, as you know, as interest rates react to inflation data and Fed expectations. Although the Fed took a pause last month in June after 10 consecutive rate hikes since March 2022, Fed Chair Powell stated that the current policy may not be restrictive enough. And as you know, yesterday, the Fed announced a 25 basis point rate hike. And so Fed funds rate now is in the 5.25 to 5.50 range. So while volatility has not gone away, we do have a bit of a tailwind in our market. Muni market tone and technicals have improved. Munis are into the strong seasonal months as there is an estimated 150 billion of reinvestment cash coming in throughout the summer. While on the issuance side, new issue supply has been pretty manageable overall. So we plan CHFA's pricing for early the week of July 10th to avoid the July 4th holiday week and also the July 12th CPI release. And CHFA was not alone in that decision. Although overall negotiated supply was estimated at 5.6 billion for that week, 1 billion of that was in housing bonds and almost half of that was single family. 2 additional points to make here, which are positive from CHFA's perspective. In the week leading up to the sale, munis outperformed treasuries, leading to tighter tax exempt to taxable ratios. And also retail investors, they've really stepped up amid the higher absolute rates, and with the flatter yield curve, they are buying longer maturity bonds. So they're going out even as far as 30 years. Next page, please.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Sorry to, but I'm I just wanted to back up where the loan sale on the one that was for 443 million, that the bond sale for 5 3/4, where we got a buy price of 107.21.
Yes.
Is there a hedging mechanism in to offset that? Like, I mean,
So the way that this is, the structure is created is that, you know, we have no idea of exactly how the loans will prepay going forward. And so to try to reduce the overall cost of funds from a funding perspective for CHFA, what we used is a PAC bond, planned amortization class bond. And what this does is it will absorb the first prepayments that come in off of the loan portfolio. And they're structured so that we can try to maintain a stable 5-year average life between a prepayment band. So here we have 100% PSA to 500% PSA prepayment PAC band. And so for investors, because they are looking at a bond that has a more stable average life across a range of prepayment speeds, they're willing to pay a little bit more for this particular bond. And on top of it, we created a premium coupon on here, 5.75%. And so that's how we get to the $107 price on this bond. Does that help answer your question?
no, I get that, but I'm just saying, and I look at all the other ones are par priced. And I'm just saying, we're at a 107. I don't know. I just wondered. I was just curious about how that prices stuff out, but I guess you answered my question.
Right, the 107 is because the coupon on this bond is a 5.75%, but the ultimate yield to the holder of that bond is 4.11.
Got it. Okay.
Get to the $107.
And you did that in comparison to all the other ones. You did that just because of the quality of the loan. I mean, like what? I guess it just struck me that when I read through that, it was just different than every other one. So just curious about that.
This type of PAC bond is common in our industry for single family bonds. Many HFAs utilize the structure. And what this does is if we did not sell this PAC bond, then we would end up having a 30-year par coupon fixed rate bond, which probably would carry a yield of, in this case, maybe a 4.75%, just roughly.
Got it.
And by directing the first prepayments to this bond to get it to a shorter average life, a 5-year average life, we're able to move down the yield curve a little bit and get to that 4.11 yield instead of selling this bond with a 4.75 yield, which would increase the overall cost of funds on this transaction.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. So on this page 7, interest rates and ratios in 2023, the upper half of the page, this graph, you can see that municipal yields have generally been range bound this year. Although currently we do have a more pronounced inversion between the 2-year and 10-year part of the curve, which is about -33 basis points. And we show that on the lower left quadrant, this table of interest rates. Also in this table, you can see that ratios have tightened since the beginning of the year. Both the 10-year and 30-year points ratios are better by 4 percentage points. On the lower right quadrant, we compare the muni and treasury yield curves, current yield curve versus a year ago. So on the treasury side, the dark blue dotted line at the very top, that is the current treasury yield curve. And so you can see the very large inversion on the short end. The light medium blue dotted line just below it, that is the treasury curve a year ago. And so you can see how much rates have moved up and the massive inversion that's happened on the front end. So that's on the treasury side. For munis, the kind of grayish blue line in the middle is a little flatter, and we also have a little bit of an inversion on the short end of the curve. That's our current municipal yield curve. And a year ago, it's the light blue solid line at the very bottom there. And you can see that we had kind of a normal looking upper sloping yield curve. So currently the MMD municipal rates have gone up a little bit, but it also has this inversion. And this is an indication of the municipal market reacting to the Fed hike, Fed rate hike expectations, similar to the Treasury market. Next page, please. Here we list some of the municipal market technical factors and themes, and just two things to point out. As we mentioned before, we're into the seasonal months, and it's positive from a technical standpoint. So in the middle of this page, you can see the monthly reinvestment trends, July through the end of the year. And so this is where you can see the amount of money that's coming into our market just from natural principal payments and redemptions, et cetera. Also, on the lower left-hand side at the very bottom here, overall municipal supply has been down from last year. Just on the tax exempt side, it's down more than 8%. And if you include taxables and AMT, the total municipal supply is down 16% from last year. Next page, please. Transaction pricing and financing results. So on Friday, July 7th, we went out with a pre-marketing scale to get investors focused. We were facing a little bit of increased supply for the week of July 10th versus the prior week, which was a shortened holiday week. And then on Monday, July 10th, we had better market tone in treasuries to start the day. So we left the pre-marketing scale unchanged for the retail order period. All bonds except for that PAC bond were offered to retail. By midday, we had a very strong book of retail orders. 18 of the 27 offered maturities were fully subscribed for by 1 times to as much as 5 times. So we recommended accelerating into the institutional order period that afternoon, despite the fact that we only had thin reads from institutions. We and the authority thought it prudent to proceed with finishing up pricing the same day to avoid overnight interest rate risk and avoid some of the competition from additional housing issues later in the week. So for the institutional order period, we adjusted several serial maturities lower in yield by 5 basis points. And even though the term bonds were fully subscribed for by retail investors, we did show 50% of the balance of those maturities to garner some additional institutional interest. So at the conclusion of the institutional pricing, the authority received over 200 million in orders from 18 institutional investors. This included 10 million in CRA orders from Citibank. The overall order book totaled 337 million across both retail and institutional buyers. And then in the end, as far as allotments, more than 55 million of these bonds went to Connecticut in-state retail investors, which is incredible. Another 10 million to national retail investors, and then over 76 million to institutions. So as far as the overall financing results with this fixed rate financing, CHFA's overall cost of funds, its bond yield is approximately 4.33%. And given where the authority is lending on the single family program, they are expected to achieve well over full spread on this transaction. Next page, please. This page just shows a comparison, a direct comparison of CHFA versus another transaction, Illinois Housing Development Authority. They were in the market at the same time with retail, and their pricing strategy was a little bit different. While we concluded the pricing in one day on Monday, July 10th, Illinois decided to keep their retail order period open all day on Monday, and then they did the institutional pricing the next day on Tuesday in the morning. And so these are the results of the sale for both issues, and you can see that CHFA did better than Illinois in most maturities, 5 to 15 basis points better. And both of these transactions are AA rated, or AAA, excuse me. Let's see, next page. Next page. Thank you. Here, it's just the pricing progression and subscriptions. Just a couple of things to point out on the far right-hand side. The second to the last column here, a spread change from the retail scale to the final scale. You can see where we made those downward adjustments in yield. And then on the far right-hand side, it shows you the subscriptions by maturity. So the majority of these maturities were well oversubscribed. We had a few that were under, and we ended up underwriting just a few of these bonds. The next page shows the orders and allotments by maturity. And so you can see what went to retail, what went to institutions. The next page, please. This is a pie chart showing the orders and allotments by investor type. On the left-hand side is the total orders. On the right-hand side, so again, 38% of the entire issue were allotted to Connecticut and state retail investors, another 7% to national retail. So overall, 45% of the transaction went to retail investors. And we looked back actually to last fall when we were involved with the authority sale in October. And in that sale, we had 39% being allotted to retail, and this time 45%. So you can see that we are seeing more retail investors coming in and buying housing bonds. And then finally, the next page, please. It shows the Connecticut map by counties, and you can see the distribution of the orders and allotments within the state. And then the rest of the book, we have the pricing wire and some columns in the back for your reference. So I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
I have just one question. I noticed that some of the bonds had the S&P letter, correct, on the social impact bonds.
Yes, this entire issue was designated social bonds. Yes.
Right. I get this. I ask this question all the time, and I still don't kind of get an answer. So just make it simple for me. Is there any pricing? And I'm not suggesting we do or don't do it, but is there any pricing benefit for that? I mean, I know that it makes the bonds more attractive to certain institutional investors, but is there any observable empirical demonstration that there's any pricing impact, or is just the typical noise of any pricing, it will swamp that, so it's unclear?
Right. So here in this case, we don't have a direct comp for another bond that is similar in credit rating and security structure without the ESG designation. So it's hard to say. And in general, we have not been seeing much of a pricing benefit. It's very hard to quantify, but what we can say is that for institutions and also for individual retail investors, when they see the ESG designation, an institutional investor, for example, a large bond fund, they could come in and they could subscribe for 50% of the transaction, and we don't know exactly at the end of the day how they allocate those bonds within their own family of bond funds, right? So BlackRock or Fidelity, many of these large bond funds will have numerous different funds that they manage, and some will be ESG designated, and it's possible that they will, at the end of the day, allocate direct, some of these investments into those funds. So that we don't really have that much visibility into, except if they publicly disclose this kind of data. But overall, I think this does help to broaden the investor base overall. But at the end of the day, and in this case, it's hard to say if there was a direct financial benefit.
Right, and this is a technical question, it's kind of a bond law question. Like if you get insurance or something, we have certain allowance for cost of issuance, and I guess this falls into the cost of issuance, but this is a tax exempt bond with a cost of issuance cap. So if you can't quantify, and I know you're saying you can't quantify a benefit for getting the ESG designation for obviously a bond that is clearly an ESG bond. It's everything we do is ESG as a not as an instrumentality of the state of Connecticut. Then has anyone ever looked at the use of funds for this? And I guess I'm answering my own question because it's under the 2% cap on cost of issuance, because there's no benefit, there's no quantifiable benefit for it. So I don't know, something to think about.
So Jerry, just to clarify, you're bringing up cost of issuance, but we did not use taxes and proceeds to fund the cost of issuance. We are paying the cost out of our own operations.
Oh, okay, well then that answers that, Azim. Thank you. I mean, look, I'm not suggesting we don't do it. I just, it's not a lot of benefit to it, and we're gonna, like, my assumption is that we'd end up in the ESG bucket at the funds anyway. They would just, someone would, or we make our investors pay. If our investors wanted to be in the ESG bucket, they would just do it.
Right. Correct.
So why we pay? I mean, just why are we paying for it if it doesn't provide any benefit? I don't think it does. And look, I'm all for it. I'm, not against ESG. It seems like until there's quantifiable benefit, until we know exactly how investor reception is what are we really accomplishing?
I understood. I think the strategy that we're taking is, number one, we're not paying per se the way that you are characterizing it.
That's fair.
ESG designation per transaction. We are professing, and then we are relying on a third-party report produced by S&P that reviewed our overall plan, meaning from a CHFA perspective versus individual transaction, that what CHFA does meets the standards under the ESG designation. So we are basically using that interpretation when we sell our bonds. So it's not per transaction, and then for every transaction we pay additional costs to get the ESG designation.
Got it.
Commissioner Perez, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Similar to what Jerry was asking, which I didn't hear an answer around if there's a difference in cost on the yield. If I heard correctly, they say for this particular issuance, we don't have anything to compare it to. But are there any studies? Are there anything else we could look at that would tell us, like in general, if you go ESG, the yield is better, it's worse, the cost is worse, is better? Which again, it has nothing to do whether we should do it or not. But at least when we're making these decisions, we know clearly if we're doing it at a gain or we're doing it at a loss, or are we giving up something or are we getting something for doing it? Is that making sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I know that within the investment communities, they've been asked by issuers like CHFA to present or to do some form of an analysis to see whether or not having a ESG designation provides any financial benefits.
But I think I want to formally request that maybe you could put something together and present to us at a future date.
Sure.
And again, it's not whether it's a good idea or bad idea. I believe that every decision we make, we should be made with the best information available to us. And then we could determine, okay, it's going to cost us an extra, 0.01 or whatever, or it's not, but that we make the decision based with, correct, adequate, best information available,
Understood. I think that the only thing I just want to make sure that the committee is aware, when we undertook the position to present our bonds as ESG, we also took the position that it's not just a financial goal that we are going after, is also trying to utilize the ESG designation as a way to tell our story about affordable housing and what we do. So in a way, when we say that we're using a second party opinion by S&P, we are leveraging S&P's communication and their audience to showcase CHFA's issuance and what we do for our state and the importance of affordable housing. So that's a what you call a parallel goal, in addition to, if we do get additional financial benefit, that's great. But at the same time, by showcasing our issuance, it would broaden our investor base and allow people to understand what we do as a municipal issuer.
That's great, Hasim. And the point I'm trying to make is, are we doing that at some cost or not, right? Or the fact that we're doing the right thing, we still make it out.
Very, very minimal. So our second party opinion, we only.
Which is fine. I mean, it's okay for us to say, look, even if it's costing us an extra $1,
Yep.
multiply that by how many zeros you want, right? It doesn't matter. Because the point I'm trying to make is, we should know that that this policy is either costing us something or it's not costing us something. It's either gaining us something or not getting us something, right?
Right.
And you know what? At the beginning, electric cars was a lot more expensive, a lot more difficult to maintain and so forth, right? And they're getting better, right? But people still bought them, right? Because the people still were willing to make that investment and make a point. And that's why I'm saying my question is not whether we should do ESG.
Yep. No, I understand. I think
It's full disclosure. I'm one of those, I am a regulator after all, right? It's
Right.
full disclosure, right?
right. No, I think I just want to manage the expectation, because currently
Look, my expectation is it's going to end up being that it's probably going to cost us something, right?
no,
But it's so minimal to the bigger goal, that we still want to do it,
Understood, but what I'm trying to get to is managing expectation from the study itself, because when you are asking for a study regarding rate benefit in a volatile rate environment, where investors, for the most part, are trying to make sure that their cash is being their cash is being used properly or getting reinvested properly, trying to hit certain yields. At the end of the day, money talks. So that's part of the struggle for the analysis, and
The same way that we have a much higher rating, a much bigger, a better reputation than other entities. And there's no way, that's reflected on the numbers, but is it because it's ESG or not, right? And again, another benefit may not be directly to us, but it could be to the people we servicing, right? Because they're going to pay lower electricity, right? At least in theory, that's what it's supposed to be, right?
Right.
So again, it's not a reflection of whether we should do it or not. It's again, full disclosures,
Yes.
And I think Jerry, made up a good point, and I simply asking the same question in a little different way,
Right. And for the record, I did ask City during the pricing just for that particular topic to see the rate differential. Yes. Okay.
I mean, because at the end of the day, if the average person saves 20% because we do, energy efficient type of initiatives, and that gives it the destination, or whatever gives it the destination, you know what? I'm willing to pay a little more front because I'm helping the people I really want to help, right?
Right.
Even better by making their cost of maintaining the house to be lower. Anyway, I think it's just an interesting topic. That's all.
No. I mean, we welcome the questions, observations, because that's how we understand and then learn something new. Yeah.
And this way, and I think we could defend our decision either way.
Any other questions for Hazim or Susan? Let's move on to financial reports with Allison Murphy.
Good morning. Before you are the June financial reports. On the revenue side, mortgage loan and investment interest revenue are coming in 7.6 million above budget and 26.2 million higher than last year. The year-over-year revenue variances continue to be driven by the increase in the authority's short-term rates. As an example, the average stiff rate last June was actually less than 1.2% compared to the average stiff rate for this past June, which was 5.13%. On the expense side, bond interest expense is 3.2 million below budget through June and is 17.1 million higher than prior year. We continue to see the same drivers behind these variances. The outstanding bonds this year are 220 million higher than the same time last year. And we also have interest rates that are higher on our variable rate bonds compared to last year. Administrative expenses are coming in 3.5 million below budget and 1.3 million higher than prior year. When you exclude salaries and benefits of 14.6 million, the current year expenses are 97,000 lower. And lastly, the change in net position is above target by 14.9 million. Are there any questions?
There are no questions. We'll move on to the production and delinquency reports of John Chilson. Did we rename those reports? It looks like we used to call them just delinquency, but now we renamed them, right?
Yes.
Right, it was your suggestion.
Yeah, okay, good.
Good morning. For the month of June, the authority purchased 195 loans totaling $45.4 million, of which 162 loans totaling $37 million were securitized, or 83% of the June production. The remaining 33 loans totaling $8.4 million were whole loans. The average loan size was $232,600. The June month-end mortgage-backed security portfolio balance was $2.4 million, which was an increase of $22.7 million over the prior month. The whole loan portfolio through May declined by 36 loans, or a total of $1.3 million, ending the portfolio balance of May at $1.1 billion. The single-family delinquency rate overall declined by 7 basis points to 1.64%, and the number of loans in foreclosure year over year decreased by $11.2 million to $16 million, while the number of loans in foreclosure decreased by 92. And for June, the authority also funded 146 down payment assistance loans totaling $2.3 million. The average loan size is just under $16,000. 3/4 of our June borrowers took advantage of the down payment assistance program. And the authority also funded 114 time-to-own forgivable loans in June, totaling $3.5 million with the average loan size of $30,700. There were no new loan closings for the multifamily portfolio in June. The overall portfolio declined by 1 loan to 560 with a portfolio balance of $1.3 billion. There were also no changes in our permanent construction loan delinquencies, with 7 permanent loan delinquencies and 1 construction loan delinquency. And the overall delinquency rate for the multifamily portfolio is just under 1%. Any questions?
There's no questions for John. Let's move on to the investment and swap reports from Allison.
So the second quarter of the year, we experienced a net decrease in the book value of our investments by approximately $136 million to $3.4 billion. However, we did see an increase in the value of our program assets by $34 million, bringing that to $2.1 billion. During the quarter, the weighted yield to maturity increased from 3.67% to 3.78%. There was no change in the number of swap counterparties or the number of swaps in our portfolio from last quarter, remaining at 42 swaps with 8 counterparties, with a notional balance of $936 million, which is an $11 million decrease from Q1. The quarter-over-quarter weighted average pay rate went down slightly from 3.02% to 2.992%. We saw an increase in the market value of our swap portfolio from last quarter, with this past quarter increasing by $18 million to $24 million. Are there any questions?
I can't look at the swap report without asking about LIBOR and our plan with LIBOR. And I know we've asked this before.
Well, LIBOR is gone, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't gone as of the June portfolio. So, and I'm probably gonna let Hazim talk a little bit more about our transition plan.
Yeah, so, LIBOR, at least when it comes to the 1 month, 3 month, LIBOR went away at the end of June. So now we are under the fallback established by ESGA. So for the 1 month, it is now the 1 month SOFR plus the applicable spread. We have not heard anything from our counterparties regarding issues relating to the transition. So we are assuming that everything is going according to what was established by the protocol.
So on the next report, we won't see LIBOR listed. We'll see SOFR plus a spread.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on this report? Seeing no questions, let's move on to the internal audit report. Joyce Kemp.
Good morning. Before you is the internal audit update, which discusses the audit activity performed in the first half of the year. The first section of the audit plan is the CHFA audits. For the multifamily business, we completed an audit of the monitoring of Spectrum Enterprises. The monitoring is performed by the Asset Management Division. The vendor is the authority's authorized delegate, and they perform compliance monitoring and reviews of multifamily properties with LIHTCs or with affordability restrictions. To give you a frame of reference, as of year-end 2022, they monitored about 383 properties. Management has implemented recommendations in the attached report to ensure that all documentation is sent to the vendor so that compliance monitoring can begin. And they're also improving their monitoring reports. This will help to ensure that initial inspections of properties are performed on time and in accordance with the Internal Revenue Code. So for the second half of 2023, the audit plan focuses on home ownership. We have 2 reviews underway to review internal controls over the home buyer mortgage loan origination programs, as well as the related purchase of mortgage loans. That function is performed by finance. During loan origination, we will review key programs of the authority, including the FHA programs, government insured programs, as well as CHFA's time to own forgivable down payment assistance programs. The second section of the audit plan focuses on the servicer compliance reviews we perform. Homeownership loans are serviced or outsourced by outside organizations, and we perform reviews which are limited in scope and focus on loan servicers' processing and collection functions. We look for example, compliance with key contract terms, insurer guidelines, perhaps federal and state laws and regulations. So the 2023 audit plan review the authority's loan subservicer, as well as 2 loan servicers that have smaller portfolios. In total, that represented about 19% of the homeowner first mortgage loan portfolio. During the period these reviews were completed, review letters were issued, and we reviewed servicer management's responses. The third section of the audit plan focuses on consulting activities. So from time to time, we will perform consulting activities for management. In accordance with the 2023 audit plan, a limited scope review of the MyTome CT program was completed. The program is funded by the Home Ownership Assistance Fund program, or HAF, under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Our program objectives were based on U.S. Treasury's HAF program compliance requirements and guidelines, and our observations were discussed with management. Homeownership Programs Management is working on addressing observations, including there's one recommendation related to improving accuracy of the periodic reporting of the project status to the U.S. Treasury, as well as completing the vendor system program funding dashboard so that the funds can be estimated for applications in the pipeline to assist in determining the cutoff date for new applications. And lastly, at the request of the administration management, and in addition to the audit plan, we perform consulting activities related to the authority's data security incidents response and emergency operations plans. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
It has to do with, I think it was yesterday, the day before, the state auditors issued the CHFA's audit. As we may all, some of us may know, as we all may know, every state agency, whether they're full blown executive or quasi, gets audited by the state auditors periodically. And in general, it was a good audit, I think. But they did find a finding that I'm concerned about, because the way they worded and that was lack of monitoring limited equity cooperatives. And they gave some examples, and in one case, they claimed in one of those cases, we didn't obtain any of the records we needed to obtain. So if at a future meeting, we could get a presentation on what that is, what steps we're taking to make sure we address it, and more importantly to me, what steps your area is going to take to go back and make sure that whatever we agree we're going to do, we actually do it.
Yes, of course. I did discuss that with management and reviewed their action plan, and we will continue to follow that, Commissioner. And also, Tina Brockett is here from multifamily. If she has any additional comments.
So my biggest concern is that they claim that in some cases we didn't even obtain any of the records, right? I mean, to me, that doesn't sound like CHFA, right? Correct. I can see that maybe we missed one and that kind of stuff. And again, I don't want to take up this meeting because we don't have much time left.
Okay.
And this only came out yesterday or the day before, publicly anyway. And in general, I think that was an exceptionally good audit. Except that this one thing really made us look like we were a little sloppy.
That could be an instance where we requested the information and the property didn't provide that information, and our documentation wasn't there. So yeah, we will absolutely, yes.
Joyce, this is Pat. Commissioner, this is Pat Giuliano. We will prepare something for you with regard to the limited equity co-ops. We'll provide some history on it. We'll provide you exactly what we put into place to address this audit finding and what our plan is for LECs as we move forward. So we will get that presented.
And if you also can include what happened, right? Why we didn't catch it, right?
Yes.
And then what you're going to do to fix it, right? But that's the approach that I take when I go to one of my entities that did something wrong. Okay, I understand what was it that they did wrong.
Correct. Just for the sake of saying, it's not in every instance that we didn't proactively request the information, is that the information wasn't gathered. So I just want to make sure that we don't start out with the wrong understanding of what's happening. But I will make sure that we provide you all the information that you're looking for.
Yeah, and let me rephrase my wording. Not what we did, what went wrong. Because we could have done something, and if they didn't comply, did we then exercise our right to force them to comply?
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
And what our rights were or not, right?
Right.
But in general, I don't know what CHFA's practice is about briefing the board on the state auditor's reports, but in theory, or not in theory, we should know, this committee, if not the full board, when those reports are released and what they say. Just like we're being briefed by Joyce on the internal audit. So what has been the practice there?
All my years, I never.
Yeah. Because we tend to get a clean audit. That's part of the reason why this is out of norm, I would say. But I think that if we need to establish a practice, it is a good practice to present to Finance and Audit Committee, because this is the platform to discuss anything related to audit.
And even a clean, I'd like to know when you get a nice clean audit too. So I think we would want to know that. So,
I
yeah,
agree.
because the media gets a hold of it right away. So anyway, let's see, any more questions on the internal audit report? Our next item is adoption of the Finance and Audit Committee meetings of May 25th, 2023. May I have a motion?
Moved, it's Tim.
Second,
Second,
roll call vote.
Jerry Abrahams,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawn,
Aye.
Phil DeFranco,
Yes.
Timothy Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
yes.
Franklin Perry,
Yes.
Chelsea Ross,
Aye.
Sarah Sanders.
Aye.
Vote passes unanimously.
So now if anyone has any other questions or matters, I did just have one follow-up question. I know a while back we approved a new bond indenture / resolution that no longer required a state guarantee on top. And I kind of thought that would be, what are the plans to utilize that? It seems like we're still using our old resolution, which is fine. I have no problem, but I'm just curious, will we be issuing under that new resolution anytime soon?
Well, we've been working on it, Sarah. I think part of the challenge, just like as to why you have not seen, or the committee has not seen a pricing presentation for multifamily ever since the rise in interest rate last year. Projects are having difficulty to get to the closing table, and they have to go back to the drawing board to deal with the gap in the source. So we are working, trying to identify projects that would meet the intention of why we established that indenture. So when we do have something, we would definitely be glad to present the result.
No rush, I was just curious. Any other questions from anyone or topics? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.